Hey guys, I'm Sarah Beth, and for those of you that don't know, I have ulcerative colitis. Now, I've had this disease for about 20 years, so most of my life, and I have since found ways to manage it naturally and be med-free and still be happy and healthy and abundant in my life. So I wanted to create this video to share with you and all the people that I've met in the last few years that have been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis or know someone that's been diagnosed with UC, that there are ways to still maintain and manage your life and your health. For those of you that don't know what UC is, it is a chronic, lifelong disease that affects the colon, the large intestine. This disease goes through flares and remissions, and when in flare, the colon becomes inflamed with ulcers or small open sores in the lining of the colon. This can lead to malnourishment due to a lack of nutrient absorption. Also weight loss, significant weight loss for some of us. Blood and mucus in the stools. Stool is poop. Bloody diarrhea, cramping, urgency, fatigue, and frequent use of the restroom. There's a plethora of other symptoms associated with these symptoms, but those are the main symptoms of ulcerative colitis. There is no known cure for the disease except for having surgery to get the colon removed entirely. Not something I'd recommend. If you definitely have to do it, that's what you gotta do, but it's not like an option, really, if you're still somewhat healthy. Medication and steroids right now are available for treatment. Now, for my background in having this disease, I remember having severe symptoms since I was 5. When I was in first grade, I had to use the bathroom a lot. I got in trouble for skipping class, and I was bleeding a lot every time I went to the bathroom. But I was very embarrassed at the time, so I didn't tell anybody, and I did my best to hide my symptoms. When I was 6, my family caught on, and they took me to the hospital where I was diagnosed as constipated and put on laxatives. Yes, I was probably constipated because when this disease flares up, the colon becomes inflamed and it can get sluggish or even stop working. So the laxatives that I was taking kind of ripped everything right through me and made everything so much worse. And me being embarrassed and ashamed of my bodily functions, I still didn't tell anyone. When I was 8 years old, I finally told a family member that every single time I was going to the bathroom, I was bleeding a lot. I was rushed to the children's hospital. I was there for a week and put on steroids and nutrients and colonoscopies, and then I was finally diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. It was after I left the hospital that the doctors told my parents that I was so sick and so malnourished when I showed up that I was essentially just withering away and dying. And when I heard this, it just changed my mindset from being embarrassed of my bodily functions to being totally shameless of my bodily functions, because I want to live. So for the next several years, I was on Asacol, prednisone, corticoenema steroids, and the brat diet whenever I was in flare. While I was doing all of these treatments, I was still going through flare-ups, probably 2 to 3 times a year, lasting maybe 4 to 6 weeks each time. I had blood work done once a week, colonoscopies done once a year, and whenever I resisted, I was threatened with a colostomy bag, which is that waste pouch that sits on the outside of your body if you do end up having your colon removed. I called it the poop purse, and for me, it didn't seem like a very fashionable item to go into high school with. So I listened, I did my treatment, I took my medication, I did the diets. When I turned 18, I decided that I didn't want to be dependent on dozens of medications for the rest of my life. So I slowly weaned myself off of the medication. I talked to a doctor beforehand and began experimenting with diet, exercise, and an Eastern approach to health. I took yoga more seriously. I went completely raw for at least 9 months, and the reason that I went raw, by the way, is because I was very concerned with colon cancer, and I did a lot of research on cancer and found out that cancer cannot live in an alkaline environment, so I created an alkaline environment by going completely raw. During that time, I consumed a lot of smoothies, salads, and fresh juiced vegetables. And that was one thing I kind of took away from the raw food lifestyle. I still consume smoothies and salads and fresh juices all the time, even though I don't consider myself raw. When I was raw, I felt like I was glowing with nutrition, And I had a colonoscopy during this time and was amazed at the response my doctors had. They were shocked at the health of my colon. In their own words, they were saying that there was a lack of track marks from the ulcers and scarring from the ulcers. There weren't any open sores at all. So that itself to me was a success. I was so happy that I had taken my disease and found a way to manage it and control it. But as much as I loved raw, as much as it taught me how to eat clean and it taught me about nutrition, it wasn't a sustainable long-term diet for me. So since then, over the last 4 years or so, I have been experimenting with paleo, FODMAPs, anti-inflammatory, and rotation diets, all of which have had their own successes. And in this time, I've been med-free since I was 18, so about 7 years now. I went through flare-ups about maybe once every year or two, and I was able to heal these flare-ups naturally. Yes, the flare-ups lasted longer than if I had steroids to like nip them in the butt, but they healed on their own, or like with the help of my own diets and yoga and meditation and just mindfulness. So before anything else, I just want to say, I'm not telling you to go off medication. I'm not promoting anti-meds or anything like that. I will definitely go on medication if my disease ever gets bad enough. I'm just right now in a sweet spot, able to manage it and live a happy, healthy life naturally, so that's super cool for me. I will share more about all these diets that I've had success with. I'll share more about the tips and tricks and just the things I do in my daily life to keep me healthy in future videos. So subscribe to my channel and keep an eye out for future ulcerative colitis videos, because I'm just going to start a series starting with this one. And in the meantime, check out my info below, like click that little box down there below, because inside of there I'll have a link towards all the blog posts I've ever written about ulcerative colitis. If you want to know more about me and my day-to-day life and dealing with ulcerative colitis day-to-day, yoga, health, the married life, check out my Instagram and my Facebook, because that's where I post daily. Also, remember that you're not alone. Okay, just me talking to my camera right now reminds me that I'm not alone. And maybe show someone else that they're not alone. Post in the comments below about your experience, your maybe diet or tips and tricks, what you've done to manage your disease naturally, and we can all kind of create a little bit of a community here. You're not alone, all right? And we've all been there. We've all experienced some of the little things, or some of the things that you're experiencing. I mean, just in the last year, I've experienced a little bit of depression, a lot of pain, being scared, being confused, being sick. But I, overall in my life, am completely happy and healthy, and I have abundance, and I wanted to share that with you. I guess that's the purpose of this video, is that it is totally a possibility. So that is it for today. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and stay tuned for the next ulcerative colitis videos. Bye.